If you don't have a conversation, then you can't establish a relationship. And we are in a relational business. We really don't sell mortgages. Mortgages are the byproduct of what we do. What we do is we provide financial security for families. We help build generational wealth. We help them set roots in a community. And all of that has to start with a conversation.
Welcome back to Good Better Broker as we bring in Mike Miklaus. He is the broker owner of Integrity Mortgage, and he is based in Sacramento, California. Mike, great to have you here.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's just really a privilege to be a part of your podcast because you do so much for our community.
I appreciate you saying that, Mike, and you have done so much for everybody in the mortgage industry over the course of your career, which spans over 50 years. You have been with Integrity Mortgage now for 30 years, and we should also mention that in addition to your work in the mortgage industry, you are a published author with a famous author by the name of Jack Canfield, who wrote a book that is probably going to be very familiar to people, Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Yeah, Chicken Soup for the Soul was the single best-selling series of books in the history of publishing. So, yeah, Jack sold that enterprise 20 years ago, and now he writes success-oriented books, and I had the privilege of being part of his book in 2024 that's an Amazon bestseller.
Incredible. Yeah, we were just talking about that before the interview, and that's just such a cool thing to hear. And, you know, Mike, when you think about all the things that you have done throughout your career, there's one thing that kind of stands paramount above a lot of the others, and that is the power of conversation and talking with clients. Why do you believe that conversations are so crucial to the business of a mortgage broker?
Because conversation is the foundation of our business. If you don't have a conversation, then you can't establish a relationship. And we are in a relational business. We really don't sell mortgages. Mortgages are the byproduct of what we do. What we do is we provide financial security for families. We help build generational wealth. We help them set roots in a community. And all of that has to start with a conversation. We have to know what their needs are. So conversation leads to a connection because they have to know, like, and trust you. And then once you have that connection, then that leads to the contract and the opportunity to be of service.
How does this, in your mind, apply specifically to local independent mortgage brokers and what they are all about?
Well, that's why I'm so excited to do this podcast with you, because there's a lot of chatter about, should I be in multiple states? Should I do this or do that? And that is a business model. And I'm not here to say it's not a great model, but I believe that the community mortgage broker has taken the place of the Bailey Building and Loan from It's a Wonderful Life. We're entrenched in our communities, and if you're a part of your community and its fabric, if you know the schools and you know the teams and you're engaged, if you attend the churches, then that community will support you if you support it. And that's the difference of a community broker, and I believe that's why the mortgage broker is growing as a business model. I think that's why we're winning our share of market back.
Before we started recording, you and I were chatting, and you told me that you simply love helping people. Why is that the case? It's hard to express, but we all have a lifetime event. Rene Rodriguez talks about that in his book, Amplify Your Influence. And my triggering event was when I was a kid. My mom went through a nasty divorce, and I mentioned this in my chapter of the book as well. And during that time, I was the oldest of the kids as we traipsed around until my mom found security in a new relationship. And so having the security of a home, I never realized how important that was to me until later as an adult. I answered a little ad coming out of UCLA to promote thrift and home ownership, went to work for a savings and loan, spent 20 years in the savings and loan model, the mortgage banking model, and then migrated. In 1996, I went to a Men's Promise Keepers conference, and I believe faith and family are foundational. And on my way home, I had an epiphany that I needed to start Integrity Mortgage and do business the way I felt it should be done in my home community, and that's what I've done for 30 years. It's amazing to hear just how people's personal experiences impact their professional decisions, and certainly that's the case for you. So thank you for sharing that with us. Let's talk about back to the conversation piece about getting out there and getting on the phone specifically and having meaningful conversations with borrowers. How do you, as a mortgage broker, do a self-assessment of this and figure out what is working for you and what is not?
Well, when you think of self-assessment, I think I have to broaden that a little bit from rather than just talking about the clients, because many times the clients don't come directly to us, and you're certainly not going to cold call through your Facebook friendships, right? I've noticed I didn't say Yellow Pages, even though I know what they were. The reality is that we rely on others to refer business to us, the realtor, the CPA, the tax accountant, and so forth. And again, that comes to having conversations. So what I look at every year is I take a self-assessment and I start with who are the 50 people that I consider the most influential relationships that I have, because those are the people that are my referrers. And some of them are past clients. Some of them are realtors. Some of them are members of my Rotary Club that I've been a part of for over 40 years. All of those relationships are important. So what are the top 50? Where is my business coming from? And then reward those relationships. Acknowledge the fact that they're doing things for you. And then, it's human nature. If you know you're appreciated, you're going to want to do more of it. So simple expressions of gratitude and appreciation go a long way. So identifying the top 50 is an essential part of being a successful local mortgage broker.
I think it's great that you quantify it, because so many times, we put out these arbitrary numbers, whether it's about, fitness or something to do with our jobs and our career goals. But just to put that number out there, I think is smart, and it gives you something to shoot for. Let's talk a bit about your conversations with borrowers, because you approach them, as you told me, with an attitude of curiosity. Tell us about that.
Well, absolutely. You cannot diagnose what mortgage they need if you don't know what their needs are. And I feel that too many people in the industry, particularly in the retail banks and the mortgage banking community, they tend to show up and throw up. They'll tell you their rates, their programs, and all those sorts of things. But they haven't actually, they're trying to sell rate. And that's the path to net zero. We need instead to know what the client's needs are and to have an attitude of curiosity when we approach a conversation. Because if we can have the conversation and build the trust to where they're willing to describe their financial fitness and their situation, then that leads to the ability to win loyalty. And I often tell a first-time homebuyer absolutely nothing until I've had a chance to ask them an important question. And that would be, what would it mean to you to own your first home? And then shut up and listen. And they're going to tell you what it's going to mean to them. And that gives you the opportunity to then share with them, I don't care if it takes 2 weeks or 2 years, if you're not going to give up on yourself, I'll walk alongside you and let's make this happen for you. We call them PALs, pre-approved and looking. Some of them have to look a little longer because they have to clean their stuff before they can be in that position. But they deserve to be treated with respect and dignity just as much as the borrower that's got their act completely together. Because most of us were never taught about money, and most of us were never taught about financial leverage, and most of us were never taught about the difference between good debt and bad debt. And the mortgage is the one form of good debt that you can leverage to build generational wealth. And we need to educate our clients about that.
That question that you pose to these first-time homebuyer clients, what would it mean to you to own your first home? It's so simple,
yet
it's so powerful. And you were telling me that some of the reactions that question has elicited has led to clients
in tears,
basically being quite emotional with you, but also it gets to the point where they're not going to anybody else for their mortgage financing.
No, because they know that you care about them. It's no longer a product, it's a relationship. And that's where, if you want to be relational instead of transactional, a relationship requires give and take, and you have to be a net giver. You have to add value to their lives, because that's what leads to that reciprocity.
Conversations with borrowers seem so simple. It seems like something every LO should be doing. But you were telling me there's this thing right now called shiny object syndrome that's taking them away from this primary activity. What does that mean, Mike?
Oh, shiny object syndrome has been around for the 30 years I've been in the business, but the current shiny object is AI. And before that, we had Chat GPT in its infancy. And before that, we had how to do your Google page. And before that, we had, you got to be on Facebook, and you got to, if you're a realtor, you got to be holding your $7 latte and walk just so, or you got to talk in the mirror to the in the car camera and look in the rearview mirror. All of that stuff is basically distractions from the primary activity that a realtor does or that we as lenders do. And so I heard a motivational speaker, which is where the shiny objects come from. It's been mentioned in a lot of places, but he described it this way. He's a bass fisherman, and he said, did you know they spend $100,000 to $200,000 to develop that attractive, colorful lure that'll snag a bass, and because it draws their attention, and then they get hooked and they go skirling off and they've lost all will? Well, that's basically what we do. We chase these shiny objects. Should I do paid leads? Should I do this or that? What you need to do is block and tackle. You need to go back to the basics of our business, which is to establish relationships, nurture those relationships, and have conversations with people. And so having the discipline to do that is what leads to the freedom, because that's what brings in the clients to where you don't have commission breath. You're not chasing every deal. You're actually enjoying serving others. And as a byproduct, if you take care of your clients, your income takes care of itself.
It's a great reminder, Mike, because, technology and social media and the internet and now AI, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because it's great that it makes our lives easier and it can make the job easier for an LO. But the flip side to that is don't forget what got you there in the first place.
Oh, and AI is a wonderful tool, and you shouldn't refer to it as an assistant. You should use it as an associate. Bounce ideas off of it. If you don't have somebody to role play with, do your scripting and role plays with it before you make your calls. Take the excuses away to not get on the phone. But you still have to block the time and actually make the calls, because you can't keep getting ready to get ready, because that's staying in the comfort zone. Most people, it's a little getting out of their comfort zone to initially get into the habit of making the calls. And you got to measure, because accountability only comes with measurement of what you expect.
Speaking of, how do you make sure that you're following through on doing what it is you say you want to do when having these conversations with borrowers?
Well, two different things. One is I have a 5-5-5 mentality, which means I need to talk to 5 realtors a day that I'm not actively doing business with. I need to have touch relationships with 5 realtor relationships and or financial planners who are already referring business with me and doing relationships. And I need to talk with either 5 current borrowers or 5 borrowers that are part of my data bank. And so we do different calls on different days, but the idea is we need to have 15 affirmative conversations and or communication text. You can't just text out. There has to be a response to count it. And I actually have a counter on my desk, and I think you and I have talked about that a little before we recorded. I'm a baseball guy. I umpire baseball. So a pitch counter is the natural tool for me to use, and so I've got a pitch counter on my desk, and every time I have a successful conversation, we click another pitch off. And that's just a way of me holding myself accountable. And then at the end of the week, it's important to review the game film. Go back and look at, how did I do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and am I cumulatively stacking the good behavior of staying relational? Because if I'm not, then I need to be honest with myself and change my time blocking and actually invest more time in calls.
Just like balls and strikes are a subjective thing for umpires, so are these calls. Like you said, it only counts as a conversation if you're getting that certain reaction, that certain outcome. So I think it's smart, and it's a great way to keep yourself accountable, like you were just talking about. What, in your mind, Mike, when talking to borrowers and trying to figure out what their needs are, and we were discussing this briefly a few minutes ago, what is the most important need that you need to figure out?
Well, we need to figure out their financial situation. And we need to be able to ask the questions about their assets, about their income, and clearly about their credit. And the only way you're going to do that is to establish a rapport first, because otherwise it feels very invasive. And so, I brand myself as the California mortgage doctor because I think it's medical malpractice. Well, there's also financial malpractice. Financial malpractice is when you're prescribing a loan to somebody when you don't know what their need is.
Market obviously has changed dramatically the last few years. And you were telling me that an inflection point for you when it comes to the importance of these conversations came when the market changed a few years back. And I think this is really important. So I want you to share that with our audience.
Okay. Well, we all remember the 2 glory years when the Fed had their thumb firmly on the scale of interest rates and held them arbitrarily below 4%. And if you could fog a mirror, you could be a loan officer. And pretty much it was like Baskin Robbins. Number 43, that's next. The calls were all incoming. And I think a lot of loan officers, both retail and wholesale mortgage brokers, we lost the reality that we need to use our electronic device to call out, that outbound calls are actually how business happens. And so I do believe that after a couple of years of having lost the discipline and the practice, that a lot of loan officers couldn't do it anymore because they said to themselves, hey, my phone's not ringing and this isn't fun and my realtors have retired and maybe I don't want to go out and build new realtor relationships. Well, you can make whatever excuses you want on the externals, whether it's the rates. I mean, we did get all the way up to 8. You can blame it on that, but anytime you're blaming it on something other than your own activity, then you really haven't done the proper self-assessment. Because to be successful in this business, we have to be willing to engage. We have to be willing to work forward and make the effort to establish new relationships, because it's all about building that community. And some people do leave your community, and that's your opportunity to replace them with a new raving fan. And as long as you're replacing your raving fans, this is a great business.
As we wrap things up, I want to simply ask you for your message, your advice to other LOs on, not just why they should have more meaningful conversations with both real estate agents and borrowers, but why they should believe that it will lead to more business for them.
They have to believe in the process. That one of the mistakes we make as an industry is we measure our success by the closings. And so if you're a loan officer and you're only closing 2 deals a month, you only get 2 days out of the month to celebrate your success. Whereas if you set a benchmark that I'm going to talk to 5 people today, and you've made your 5 calls and you've had 5 conversations, you can have a success every one of the 22 working days of the month. And so setting the right goal, which is to make the calls, then the closings will take care of themselves. And if we only celebrate the closings and you only have 24 of them a year, then the rest of the time you're feeling like you're getting pounded. And that's not the right mindset to be successful. To be successful, we have to measure our actions, not the results. The results take care of themselves when we do the proper actions.
It's a valuable message to share. And to me, it also is great because it's coming from a place of care. And, we hear Matt talk about you got to care. You got to care about your people. You got to care about your clients. And it's obvious that you feel the same way, that you're truly out for the best outcome for your clients. And that, to me, is the best possible scenario that you can find yourself in as a mortgage loan originator. So we appreciate you sharing that with us, Mike. And it was great to hear a little bit about your story. And we wish you continued success and more fun to come as you continue helping lots of people out there. Mike Miklaus with Integrity Mortgage. Thanks for being here.
I appreciate you having me so much. Thank you very much.
Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to be notified about new videos, as well as your preferred podcast platform for a new episode every other Tuesday.